about something really interesting. What is a file? So, a file is a pretty ubiquitous term and it has a bunch of meanings even outside of computer science lingo. But today, let's take an analogy and understand what are files in the context of computer science. A file is like
Hi, I'm Milo Roseanne with Builder.com, and today we're going to turn this wine barrel into a kangaroo.
You guessed it, a barrel. Just like a barrel is a sealed container, a file is a sealed container of information. Barrels can contain anything like oil or beer or whatever you can think of. Files can contain anything as well. This can be text, video, audio, whatever you can think of. And that's just the beginning. Barrels and files have a whole bunch of things in common, and we'll be talking about them in this class. So, what do you generally use a barrel for? You put stuff in a barrel and then you can move it around from place to place. Similarly, you can put stuff in a file, and once that information is contained within a file, you can move it from one place to another place. So now that you put your stuff in a barrel, you might want to actually get it out. You can do this by putting in a tap and then pouring out the contents and collecting the pour until the barrel is empty. It turns out that getting things out of a file is pretty similar. You put in a loop to read the contents of a file. This loop continues until all the information in the file has been read. That is, until you reach the end of the file. This bears repeating. You read the contents of a file until the contents run out or the information runs out, the same way you pour stuff out of the barrel until the contents run out. What else? Some barrels contain stuff that you can pour out and then you can use it right away. You don't need to do anything with it first before you can use it. Similarly, some files contain stuff that you can take out and use directly without processing it first. What are examples of this? For example, if you have a barrel of beer, you can straight away pour it out and drink it. Similarly, if you had text files, you can just print the information to screen directly. The opposite of this is true as well. Just like you have barrels which contain stuff that you cannot use directly. That is, you must take it out, do something with it first, process it in some way, and turn it into a usable form. Similarly, there are files which contain stuff that you cannot use directly. You have to do some kind of programmatic processing first before they are usable. Examples of this: barrels can contain crude oil, which needs to be first converted into, say, petrol or gasoline. Similarly, files like audio or video files are in a format called a binary format. These have to be processed and understood before they can be played on a player. The format and the processing can differ based on the type of the audio or video file. There is no end to this analogy, is there? And believe me, there's more coming up. What are different things that you might want to do when you open a barrel? You might want to take stuff out of the barrel. Or you might want to empty it completely and put new stuff in. Maybe you just want to add more stuff to what's already in there. When you open a barrel, you need to take certain precautions. You must remember to close the barrel once you're done with it. Otherwise, bad things can happen. Like what you say? It might leak, or something bad might get in, and then the contents of the barrel become unusable or contaminated. Similarly, if you open a file, you should always remember to close it. Otherwise, unexpected things might happen. Okay, why would you want to open a file? Let's go back to why would you want to open a barrel? You might want to clear the existing contents, clear what's in the file already, and write new contents in. Or you might want to read the contents of a file. Or you might want to add more things to a file. That is, you might want to append to the existing contents. Write, read, and append. These are the 3 operations that you might want to do on files. We are not done yet. Let's internalize this analogy further. A file is like a barrel. Just like there might be different types of barrels based on the contents of the barrel, like beer barrels, crude oil barrels, or apple cider barrels. There are different types of files. These might be Excel files, MP3 files, video files. These are some common examples that you might have heard of. There are different folks who know what to do with the different types of barrels. How to process the contents, how to derive some utility out of the contents. Similarly, there are different programs that know what to do with different types of files. There are some programs which know how to use Excel files. For example, open them, read into them, write into them, or draw charts in them, and so on. There are some programs which know what to do with a video file or an MP3 file. Say, for example, play them. Let's take an example of something useful and material that you yourself could do with files. Something that you might want to build in the real world. As an input to our program, we want to give it a file. This file we want to download from the website of the National Stock Exchange. And this file contains the stock information for a given day, and we'll download the file for today. The file will be a zip file. What do we do with this input? We want to generate an Excel file which has the top movers of the day and the most heavily traded stocks of the day. So we want an Excel file in which this information is stored. Why is the file that we are downloading a zip file? This is because the stock information for a day would be a huge file, and to easily move it around, we need to zip it and then unzip it at our end. The Excel file that we'll actually generate has to be created cell by cell. If this sounds a little daunting, don't worry. It's made really easy by the repetitive nature of programming. We're setting out to do something complicated. So let's break it down step by step. The first step is to download the zip file from the internet. So we'll write a bunch of code that will do this. Once we've downloaded the zip file from the internet, we need to actually access the contents of the zip file, or we need to unzip and extract the contents of the zip file. In our case, what we will get when we unzip the zip file will be a CSV file. More on that in a minute. CSV means comma separated values, and it's a standard file format for storing information. Once we have the CSV file, we need to process it, and we will be doing this line by line. Once we've read this file line by line, we need to sort the contents of the CSV file to get the data that we need. And what is that? The heavy movers of the day. This is exactly what we'll need to create our Excel output. At the end of this, we take this information and create our Excel file. That's it. These are the steps that we will need to go through to do this real world exam.